Welcome to Informed Sources on News Channel 3, where we talk about the week's big stories with local voices. I'm your host, Greg Hurst. Thanks for joining us. In a moment, I'll introduce our panel, but first, here are tonight's hot topics. We're now just a few days away from the Mississippi general election. Tonight, we'll focus on the big races on the ballot, including the battle between Republican Governor Tate Reeves and his opponent, Democrat Brandon Presley. We'll also discuss the other statewide offices that will be included in Tuesday's election, including Lieutenant Governor, Secretary of State, and Attorney General. And then we'll look ahead to the next 4 years and the issues that will be impacting the Magnolia State moving forward, no matter who wins on Tuesday. But before we begin tonight's discussion, let's introduce our panel. I am joined by Dr. Deborah Williams, the chair of the DeSoto County Democratic Executive Committee, and Republican State Representative Dana Criswell from Olive Branch, who is one of the several members stepping away from the legislature this year. Dr. Williams, it's great to have you here. It's the first time you're going to be with us.
Thank you for the invitation.
Well, we know you're passionate about Democrat politics in Mississippi.
I am.
And we look forward to your expertise. And Representative, we know this isn't your first time with us, but you've been around the state legislature for a while, even though you're stepping away. We know you know it like the back of your hand, and we're looking forward to leaning on your expertise as well.
Well, I appreciate you having me again. I enjoy it every time.
All right, it's good to see you both. So let's begin tonight with the biggest race on the ballot, the race for Mississippi governor. Incumbent Republican Governor Tate Reeves is being challenged by Democrat Brandon Presley, the longtime public service commissioner for northern Mississippi. An independent candidate, Gwendolyn Gray, recently dropped out of the race and endorsed Presley, but she'll still appear on Tuesday's ballot. Reeves and Presley took part in a heated TV debate in Jackson this week. The two candidates went back and forth on several issues, including Medicaid and campaign contributions, but the real fireworks came when Presley tried to link the governor with the ongoing scandal over misspent welfare money, the governor calling the accusations a lie. And when Reeves took shots at Presley, Presley said the governor was intentionally misleading people and lying as well. And those were the warm and fuzzy parts of that debate. So, Dr. Williams, let's start with you. You know, a Democrat has not held the governor's office in Mississippi for 20 years. What gives Brandon Presley a chance here?
I think what gives him a chance here is that he's really communicated that he is a man of the people. And I think it's been a long time since a lot of people in Mississippi have felt the empowerment that they feel now with the governor, that they feel really has their best interest at heart. And I think we saw that in the debate on Tuesday.
Representative, do you think Tate Reeves is vulnerable here?
I think Tate Reeves has made mistakes throughout the time that he's been there. There's not a doubt in that. And there are conservatives that have been upset with him. But if you get down to the point where you think that conservatives then, and he's going to lose their vote for somebody who is an avowed liberal, I just don't think it's going to happen. So I think at the end of the day, it's going to be closer than we thought, but Tate's going to end up winning.
If this race is close, why is it close?
Well, I think there's a couple of reasons. I think Tate messed up during the COVID issues. I mean, he made conservatives upset during that time because he pretty much handed over the state and the economy to Dr. Dobbs, who was not a conservative, and he didn't run and make conservative decisions. I think that kind of set him up to make some of his base conservatives upset and angry with him.
You know, Presley is a former mayor of Nettleton, Mississippi. Right. Why does he even have a chance here?
Well, I think he has a chance. If you watch the debate, I think that there was one of the presenters there who was representing, say, black business. He was an African-American business owner. He asked Presley a very straightforward question. He asked both of the candidates a very straightforward question. What is it that you are going to do to help me as a small black business owner? And I think the contrast between the two will make a difference, because what Governor Reeves said was, well, I'm going to set up some workforce development programs and hire some people. What that business owner heard in that is that you don't understand what my issues are. You don't understand what my daily struggles are. Because what he wanted to hear from either of those gubernatorial candidates was, how am I going to find some affordable space? How am I going to get access to some capital so that I can grow my business? How can I get expertise that will help me to grow and to scale my business? How do I get access to some of these statewide contracts so that I can be competitive with some of the other companies? How do I find affordable automobile insurance so that I can compete with other individuals and other companies that are out here. Those are the types of issues that he wanted to have addressed, and it didn't happen.
You know, during that debate and also throughout the campaign, Tate Reeves has tried to tie Brandon Presley to Joe Biden and other liberal politicians. Is that a strategy that works?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you look at he tries the good old boy Gomer Pyle shtick. And the fact is that
you're talking about Presley.
Presley does.
Yeah.
And the fact is that Presley is a part of the Democrat Party. That is who he is getting his money from. And these are the people, these are the Biden Democrats. Biden is the reason that these small businessmen you're talking about are having issues and problems. Biden is the reason that the economy is horrible. Biden is the reason that unemployment is high. Biden is the reason that interest rates are so high, and it's hurting people and hurting small businesses. So for Presley to align himself, and he takes millions of dollars from these organizations, it's just not going to fly when he tries to say, yeah, I'm a part of that group, but no, I'm a conservative like you. People are smarter than that.
Presley has been endorsed by some liberal politicians, but he's also been endorsed by Mississippi resident and Academy Award winner Morgan Freeman.
Right.
Do those kind of things work in Mississippi?
I think so. I think he has a wide, diverse base of support, and I think that's going to bode well for him on Tuesday. I think he does have some support from a number of Republicans, some independents, and a number of Democrats who have felt very powerless are starting to understand the power of their voice and the power of their vote, and I think we're going to see that on Tuesday.
If Brandon Presley were to win on Tuesday, he would need Republican support to get anything done in Mississippi. Would he get that?
No, I think what you're going to see, if Presley ends up governor, you're going to see the Mississippi legislature run to the right. I mean, they're going to run to the right to show their difference between him, and he's going to get nothing. I mean, the truth is that the governor is a very weak position in Mississippi. He really only has the power of the pulpit. He has the power of veto. And I think you're going to see a bunch of Republican legislators who have been moving a little bit towards the left. I think you're going to see them run to the right if Presley is there.
You know, we also talked about Joe Biden, his impact on this race. The former president also overshadows many races. Does Donald Trump have any impact on this race in particular?
Well, he has an impact in that people don't want him back. So if some people are going to vote not to support Tate Reeves because he has the support of Donald Trump, then so be it. That's going to be the case as well.
How is money that's been flowing in from the National Democratic Committee, how has that helped Presley's campaign?
Well, it's helped because you're able to get people out. You're able to do phone banking. You're able to knock on a lot of doors and do canvassing, all types of advertising and signs and all of those things that you're going to need to put yourself in proximity of the people that are going to vote. And that's what we've been doing.
Phone banking and canvassing, how big is voter turnout going to be this coming Tuesday?
I think the only race that people are really interested in is the governor's race. But that's the top of the ticket, and down ticket items don't draw people. So I think it's going to be a pretty good turnout. I think there's a lot of conservatives who have been upset with Reeves, but at this point they're looking at their alternative, and I think they know you cannot have a Biden Democrat run in Mississippi and expect anything to get better. It's just going to get worse. So I think they're going to come out for Tate at that point.
Dr. Williams will give you the last word here. Who benefits from a big turnout?
Oh, definitely Brandon Presley, without a doubt. And if you look at absentee voting up until this point, DeSoto County is up 138% in absentee voting, and I think it's going to correlate with turnout.
All right, it's going to be fun to watch.
Yes.
All right, when we come back, we're going to shift our focus to some of the other key races on Tuesday's ballot, including Lieutenant Governor, also the Secretary of State, the Attorney General. That's coming up next on The Informed Sources.